Hi, everyone, and welcome to this event that is about how to find community in the remote world. Today, we are having this event with our friends at Tulsa Remote, and I will introduce you to them a little bit later. In the meantime, and while some people arrive and some people start connecting, just some housekeeping announcements. Remember, all the content will be recorded. So if you cannot be in the whole session, you can rewatch it later. You can have access to it later. Also, please, in the comments, keep the conversation relevant to the topic. We will be talking about community. We will be talking about Tulsa. So please keep that in mind. Also, remember, this is not a recruiting event. So if you want some resources, you can go to We Work Remotely. We will be more than happy to help you there. But this event is all about community and all about Tulsa. So let's keep that in mind. And one of the reasons we are having this event is because loneliness and finding a community is something that a lot of remote workers struggle with. And so we figured out we would invite our friends from Tulsa Remote so they can talk about how they are helping remoters find a community in Tulsa. And so for that, I am going to introduce and add to the stage to Justin Harlan, who is the managing director at Tulsa Remote. He will be your person today. He will be leading the conversation. Hi, Justin. How are you?
Hey, Justine. Great name. Love it so much. I'm
Right?
doing well. How are you?
All good, all good.
Good.
Also happy to speak to a fellow Justin.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited about this event, and we are really looking forward to knowing more about Tulsa. So I will leave the stage, and please feel at home. And I will be in the backstage, everyone. And so also, please, if you have any comments or anything, feel free to add them, and Justin will go through there. So thank you so much, Justin. And I will add the presentation, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate it. Well, as Justine mentioned, my name is Justin Harlan. I'm the managing director for Tulsa Remote, and I'm thrilled to be with you today talking about finding community in a remote world, which often gets dubbed as this very lonely or isolating thing, and often one of the biggest knocks to remote work that we hear from leaders and organizations. So my goal today is to tell you about Tulsa Remote and how we've leveraged community to really build what we've created here and make it what it is. And I hope that there's some takeaways too for you, regardless of whether you're interested in Tulsa Remote or not. I hope that there's something that you take away. We work with remote workers from all over the country and know that it is hard to find community in a remote world. And I definitely want to share a bit about how you can find community wherever you are and explain how Tulsa Remote has helped over 2,500 remote workers find community. So for those that are not familiar with Tulsa Remote, I do want to share a bit about our program. And we're going to actually have a chance to hear from a couple of our members a little bit later on. So definitely stick around for that. And if there's questions that you have for me or them, definitely put those in the comments. But Tulsa Remote was born in 2018, before the pandemic, before we were all watching Tiger King on our couches and working remotely, and was this idea that if we could attract people to the city in exchange for $10,000, you commit 1 year to living here. Our bet was that they'd fall in love with the city and stick around. And we've certainly seen that to be true. We've had over 2,500 folks move to Tulsa through the program. And there's a number of benefits that we offer folks for that year commitment. The $10,000, obviously, in cash, free co-working space for 3 years. We have events every month that help build the community that I'm going to talk a little bit about today. Really intentional and individualized community support in an effort to get people plugged in to the greater Tulsa community. And most recently, we've added some health and wellness benefits that actually give you a little bit to spend every month for your first few months to find a gym to plug into, or a mental health facility to get support in, or we have actually given access to a hospital in town as well that gives you extended hours and personalized support. So prioritizing mental and physical health and well-being in the midst of a big life transition is something that we've focused on recently as well. So that's a little bit about how this works. And I also want to share a bit about what we believe, because at the heart of any good organization are some great belief statements, as well as giving you a sense of what we are trying to create here in Tulsa and how we're doing it. So we believe that remote workers should really have the freedom to work where they want to live, not be forced to live where they have to work. And that's really at the heart of what's beautiful about remote work as a whole. We also believe that people who come to Tulsa and experience it here will want to build their lives here. And finally, we believe that we can help people find a sense of belonging by engaging in the greater Tulsa community. And when we think about Tulsa 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we see this large remote work community here that creates opportunities to live, grow, and build what's possible for all across the city. So we're really raising the bar for all Tulsans. And we do that by attracting and retaining remote workers who help grow the Tulsa economy and also desire to use their skills and passions to make this great city more diverse, more vibrant, creating more opportunities for everyone across the city. So you might be wondering at this point, am I eligible for this program? And the answer hopefully will be uncovered in the next 30 to 60 seconds here. But we're looking for folks, when you apply at tulsaremote.com, that can move to Tulsa within 12 months. So once you get in, you have 12 months to make the move. We're looking for full-time remote employees, which is better defined on our website. But basically, if you can do your job anywhere and you live outside of Oklahoma, we're paying you to do your job in Tulsa. You have to be at least 18 years old and eligible to work in the United States. And just kind of as a side note, especially because I know that We Work Remotely has a large global presence. If you are outside of the United States, you're certainly eligible to apply, but you have to be a permanent resident who possesses a green card. So we don't help with the acquisition or approval of credentials that would help you do that. So a little bit about who we are bringing in. We've got people from all over the country that are coming to Tulsa. We see about a third of our folks coming from our two biggest states, California and Texas, which makes a lot of sense. And the average age is about 35, but we really see a wide range of people that are moving here from the ages of 18 all the way up to 70. And 90% of the people that are coming are staying beyond that year, which is so exciting. And I think reinforces our initial belief that once people give Tulsa a chance, they're going to fall in love and continue to make Tulsa home. So often we get asked, like, why is this working? What did you all do? What's the secret sauce behind this program? And I'm going to share a few about that today, a few reasons for that today, ending with, of course, community, which I really think is at the heart of our program's success. First of all, Tulsa over the last couple of decades has really been intentionally investing in placemaking. So we actually have one of the nation's best parks in the Gathering Place, which was recently named by USA Today to be the best park in the United States. We also had 7 James Beard Award nominations this past year, which is more than Las Vegas. Just a really great place to be, a downtown scene that's growing and buzzing, and it's attracting people. And so that is important because it's not like we're in the middle of a farmland that, trying to bring people here. There's awesome things happening. There's a million people that live in the city, and a lot of those big city perks without the big city headaches. Still very low cost of living, very little traffic, etc. We also are very intentional at the way that we support people as they move to town. So we know that moving is hard. It's physically draining, emotionally draining. I mentioned some of the benefits that we have in place to support that, but we're also giving resources to help folks sift through housing options and really meeting them when they're on their visit here to show the best of what Tulsa has to offer. And then when you arrive, we intentionally try to connect you with members in the city and cultivate that community where you're finding people that share your passions and backgrounds. And I'll tell you about some specific ways that we do that now. We have an entire team with the goal of helping our members find community. We know that that is going to keep people around in Tulsa, and it's also going to lead to that better life-work balance and general happiness as it relates to life. There's people that are literally waiting for you to arrive so that they can sit down with you in that one-on-one meeting and say, how do we get you plugged in to Tulsa? We do about 15 to 20 events every month that are focused on socializing, professional development, volunteering, really making the most of your time in Tulsa. And every single person that comes is assigned to a member integration specialist that helps you get plugged in to the greater city of Tulsa. We also, from the first time that you visit Tulsa on your hosted visit, we're introducing you to organizations in the community where you can get involved and make an impact. We really see this and are trying to attract people that are ready to giving to the city of Tulsa, and not just taking the money, but coming here in an effort to volunteer and contribute and leave the city a better place. We continue to do this by collaborating with different organizations for events and putting opportunities to engage in our weekly newsletter, as well as Slack. We have really leveraged Slack as a great tool for our community, and there's something for everybody there. Honestly, whatever your interest is, there's probably a channel on Slack where you can find other people that have that same interest. Maybe it's a specific city you're moving from. Maybe it's a age of your children. Maybe it's things that you just like to do in your free time. There's other people in the midst of those 3,000 folks on our Slack platform that have those same interests. And so we utilize that, as well as some of the plugins that you can use in Slack, to help people find others that share their same background or have their same desires and interests upon arrival. So you might be thinking, this is great, very generic program that is having a lot of success, but it's definitely not for me. I'm more so interested in how I can find community where I am and as a remote worker. And I hear you. That's fine. We recognize that this may not be for everybody. Here's a couple suggestions that I would have for you. Much like we've utilized Slack, I would encourage you to find those common interest groups, attend those local meetups for things that you're interested in, maybe join a recreational sports team, find those general groups online where you can connect to folks that are in your same city or have your same passions or interests. I would also encourage you to find a co-working space. Maybe you can find a membership where you just pop in once a week, or go to that coffee shop and intentionally try to talk to somebody that looks like they're doing a remote job. Third spaces, so co-working space, gyms, coffee shops, those are all going to continue to increase as more and more folks are working remotely, or we continue to stabilize the people that are working remotely. So lean into those third spaces as a way to find your community. And then finally, I'm a firm believer that life is much bigger than work. And oftentimes the connections that we can make in the community we can find is completely separate from the workplace and completely separate from the work that we're doing. So I would also encourage you to find your niche, find where you can plug in to the community itself. And I believe that good employers are also supporting their employees and helping them do that. Find those organizations that share your passions and get involved. I'm a nonprofit leader. I have been for my whole career. Everybody's looking for board members. Everybody's looking for people to come and volunteer or join a committee. I'm sure that there's someone out there that could use your help. And it's a great way to help your purpose feel much bigger than the work that you're doing, and establish some rhythms that would come to life outside of the workplace. So I definitely want everybody to feel empowered to find that for yourself. Wherever you are in the world as a remote worker, we've got to find that community, and being self-aware and knowing that you need to fill that gap is step one. There's many ways to find community. Tulsa Remote is certainly doing that and helping people that come here find it here. But we also recognize that the members that are coming to Tulsa are joining something that is much bigger than just our program. And that's actually the orientation that we use for our members. We want all of our members to become fully integrated Tulsans that leverage Tulsa Remote to transition to town and develop a love for their new home. But we don't want people to require Tulsa Remote in order to enjoy life here. And so you might be wondering why there's a goldfish in a bag on the screen, which is a completely fair question. And I'm about to tell you, we use this analogy of a time that you go and purchase a goldfish from the store. And you pick out the fish, they put it in a bag just like this for you. And then you bring that fish back home and you put that fish in an aquarium where it acclimates to its new environment. It gets used to that water temperature, and you keep it in the bag until that point comes, at which point you cut the bag open and the fish swims freely, and it doesn't necessarily feel the shock of being in that new place, and is able to kind of meet all of its new friends or swim in the coral or whatever else this fish is doing at that point in its life. And that's really how we think about our work with our members, right? We're bringing somebody into town. Perhaps they're in this, hypothetical bag of sorts. We're bringing them into a new environment. And then we are intentionally helping them get acclimated and then let them swim freely. Our ultimate goal is that they feel so integrated in the Tulsa community that they do not need Tulsa Remote, the program that actually brought them to the city, because they feel like a normal Tulsan, somebody who's just here and leveraging all that the city has to offer. And so I would encourage you, wherever you are, to think about that. Maybe you're in a new place. How do you get out of the bag? How do you get out of that bubble and create community, whether it's with colleagues or outside in those third spaces, volunteering with an organization, filling that cup for yourself and helping yourself find community. And so with that, I'm actually going to stop my slides here and going to introduce Tyus and Caitlin, who are both members with Tulsa Remote. They're going to pop up on the screen here now. And hello, guys. How are you doing? Good to see you. Would love to just pick y'all's brains just a little bit. I just said y'all because we are in Oklahoma after all. But why don't we just start by having you both introduce yourself. Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind starting, just share a bit about who you are, what you do for work, what brought you to Tulsa to begin with, and maybe where you're coming from. Let's start there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, guys. Don't mind me. The dog's in the background. So if he's hollering, that's where that's coming from. But yeah, I'm Caitlin. I am a front-end software engineer for an e-commerce company. I've been doing that 5 to 7 years probably at this point. Most recently moved from Northwest Kansas. Actually, when I got a remote job for the first time in 2018, I moved back to where I grew up to kind of be around family for a little while, kind of get to know my nephew a little bit, get to spend some time as an adult with family that I hadn't had the chance to do when I had to work in an office. So did that for a little while. Then Tulsa Remote came across my radar, decided it was time for something new, and moved down here in 2020. So kind of in the earlier phases of the program. So I've got to see how it's, evolved over the years, which has been really exciting.
Awesome. I'm just realizing now that we have 2 people here with Kansas ties. So Tyus, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm from Kansas City, born and raised in Kansas City. Went to K-State for college, for those that are kind of familiar kind of with the Midwest. And yeah, I kind of just reached a point in my life. I moved to Tulsa in August of 2021 and was kind of just really stagnant. Like my life, I wasn't really like progressing. I wasn't really like going backwards in Kansas City, but came across the Tulsa Remote opportunity and I moved down here, and it's been fantastic. Right, I've been here for 2 years, and I haven't left yet. I don't have any intention of leaving. And the nice thing about being from Kansas City is my family is really close. So if I ever need to go see my mom or whatever, she can text me and I can be there within 3 hours. But yeah, I work for a marketing agency, and I am currently at my apartment with no dog, but I'm thinking about getting one. So we'll see.
Love it. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the moment that my dog runs in here and starts barking. So we'll live this remote working life together. So Tyus, I'd love to learn a little bit about how you went about finding community when you first moved to Tulsa, whether that was leveraging Tulsa Remote or not. And especially since we have others on the call that aren't in Tulsa Remote, would love to just make that as applicable as you can for those that are not in a program like ours. So what did you do to find community in a new place?
Yeah, Justin, and I think you kind of hit on it a few times, man, but you have to be really intentional, about building community. Tulsa Remote does a great job of, curating events and connecting you with the right people or the right organizations. But I think it's really important when you move to a new city, you almost have to create opportunities for yourself, right? And it's kind of challenging and scary to put yourself out there and make connections and go to a coffee shop and meet this person or just kind of go to different events. And so that's something that I really tried to do when I got here, is I was just really intentional about, building community and going out and doing stuff. And so now, like, I'm a part of a pickleball community. I'm a part of a men's group. I go and play basketball. Like I have all these things to do, and I'm very grateful for that. But I don't think that would have happened if I didn't, go out and actually do things, right? It's super easy to stay in your apartment, but I think ultimately you have to create those opportunities for yourself, be intentional about relationship building, and then go from there. But Tulsa Remote does a great job of kind of like building a foundation, and then you can kind of like build on top of that. So,
yeah, agreed. Much like almost anything in life, you've got to put in a little effort. Most things are not going to come to you. So I think community is the same way, where even with Tulsa Remote, there's plenty of people that move here that have a hard time finding community. And oftentimes that's because they're not kind of meeting us halfway there. We're providing those opportunities, and, you got to get up off the couch and, get out and take advantage of some of those chances. And regardless of where you are, I think there's something in your city or place that is an opportunity. You just got to get up and take advantage of it. Caitlin, I know that you moved in the midst of COVID, so that had to be even more difficult. And I'm just curious, you, as somebody who I really look at as somebody who's really plugged in amazing ways here in Tulsa and gotten very involved and contributed to the city in a number of different ways. How did you do that, even in the midst of a pandemic? And how are you continuing to do it today?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. I remember when I was getting ready to move here, my family was like, "Well, what are you going to do? Just sit in your apartment by yourself?" And I was kind of like, "Well, that's basically what I'm doing here. So I might as well at least do it in a novel place, you know?" So we talked a little bit about the Slack community with Tulsa Remote, and that was super, super just indisposable in kind of finding people that I had things in common with. And Tyus touched on it too, like just the intentionality. So we were all in the same boat, you know, everybody was isolating, social distancing. There were a bunch of us that were kind of coming in at the same time. And so the people who are already here were great to kind of tap as a resource. The new people that were coming in, I mean, we literally just popped in a channel and said, "Hey, does anybody want to hop on a Zoom happy hour?" And that was before we all got, super tired of Zoom happy hours. But it was great to start kind of making connections and figuring out who you had things in common with. And that kind of just naturally evolved into like, "Hey, let's go have a socially distanced, fire pit hang," or something like that. And yeah, it has really kind of just led into like those more organic opportunities to get involved. But yeah, definitely touching back on that intentionality piece and just kind of taking the first steps to find your people.
Yeah, totally. Even in times where it might seem hopeless or that it's not possible, being intentional about taking those, even when it seems more cold or might be more challenging, finding ways for that connection. That's what we all desire as human beings. So that's awesome to hear, Caitlin. Would love to hear, both of you fall into that 90% of people who have stayed beyond the year. Would love to hear a little bit from each of you about why you decided to stay and why you're still here today. Tyus, do you want to start with us?
Yeah, the only reason I'm here is because Caitlin decided to stay. So once she's gone, I'm gone too. No, man, but in all seriousness, no, Tulsa's a great place. Like I said, I was just at a point in my life a few years ago where I was looking for like a challenge. I was looking for like a growth moment. And, Tulsa Remote especially kind of presented a really good opportunity for me to kind of, move away, and ultimately like try to do something else. And so for me, the reason that I've stayed is it all kind of comes back to me, to community. And Justin, you kind of hit on that, but that's why Tulsa Remote exists, right? It's a remote world now. Everybody, a lot of different people, have remote jobs, and it's just hard to like make friends and build relationships and have people that you can lean on. And so for me, I've got a whole bunch of good buddies in Tulsa, and I've been fortunate to, kind of build relationships with people. And so for me, man, I've stayed just because of the community. Like I said, I'm a part of a pickleball club. I love my pickleball club. I'm a part of a men's group. So, the guys that are part of this men's group, man, like they're brothers to me now. And so if I left, right, I feel like I would get like major FOMO. And there's just all this energy and whatnot in Tulsa, man. And so I just don't want to miss out on the things that are happening here. And Caitlin can maybe kind of talk about some of those things as well. But yeah, man, that's kind of why I decided to stay. I'm just really happy here and I don't want to leave.
Love it. How about you, Caitlin?
Yeah, that's awesome. For me, Tulsa's been super interesting in that just the people that I've started to interact with and like just proximity to having been here has really, in terms of like personal growth, been super integral. Because I have leveled up in my career like exponentially faster than I had in the previous several years. And just I'm finding people that are interested in doing, going rock climbing or working with animal rescues or going to see live music. There's always something going on. There's always someone here to find that you can go do that thing with. If you're not, super into going to do things by yourself, it's pretty easy to find community doing just about anything that you're interested in. And so that's been one of the main reasons that I'm still here is it's really, I don't know, people are just very open to including you and helping you kind of like giving you a hand and pulling you along with them, which is fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, that Midwest love and kindness, or Southern, I guess. I don't know where Oklahoma is. I've been here 20 years and it's still kind of a debate, but it definitely has that, hospitality vibe to it where people are friendly and willing to help and certainly give you a smile as you pass them by. So I do see a question here from Rachita in the comments. Keep the questions coming. We certainly have plenty of time to answer whatever's on your mind. She's curious what the pros and cons are. I know I'm incredibly biased. I lead an organization that tries to move people to town. I've been here about 20 years, but I would love to hear, and feel free to speak openly about some of the cons too. But Tyus, what are some of your favorite things about Tulsa? You've talked a bit about community. What about as a city? And then anything that you think the city could do to improve?
Yeah, I mean, something that I've noticed, Justin, I don't have, a wife or a family yet. At some point, I do want to be a dad and raise a family. And that's something that I've noticed is just, it's a very family friendly place. And I'm relatively active too. So, I kind of already mentioned pickleball. I can't seem to get off that just because it's such a fun sport. It seems like it's just blown up. But no, Tulsa, I think one of the biggest pros is just how much you can be active, right? You can get outside. There's great trails. Justin, you talked about the gathering place being, a multi-million-dollar park where, people can take their families and just like be outside, running trails, bike trails. And so that's definitely one of the positives. One of the cons, being from Kansas City, the barbecue is excellent. And so something that's lacking in Tulsa, I mean, there might be one barbecue spot. In Kansas City, there's 20 to 25, right? And so I'm still waiting on Tulsa to kind of, have a barbecue spot. But outside of that, man, like I said, I love it here. And I love how, like I said, family friendly that it is. And once I have a family, like I said, I think it's a great place to, kind of raise little ones for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. Anytime I'm up in Kansas City, I'll be sure to hit you up and see if I can bring you back some, takeout. Caitlin, anything you would add to that in terms of pros or cons?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pros are kind of outweighing the cons at this point. Obviously, like Tulsa is still very affordable in terms of buying a home, making sure your utilities are paid, everything like that. There's some stuff that you're going to find in every city. I mean, there's a unhoused population. There's a lot of stray dogs that are just roaming the streets because there's like no good spay and neuter program. Obviously, you can see like what's my priority here too. But on the flip side of that, like, because there are so many opportunities here to plug in, it's so easy to get involved to kind of like work on addressing solutions to some of those problems. So I think it's kind of a double-edged thing there, right? Like you see these things maybe a little more closely than you would in a larger city, but you also have the opportunity to get involved to, work towards some solutions.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I think I talked a little bit about some of my favorite things at Tulsa earlier, but I think that's one of the things that it really drew me to the city to begin with when I went to college. And the college is very similar to the city in the sense that it's small enough where you can really get plugged in and make an impact, but big enough where you can see that impact felt across multiple layers, which is so exciting. The one knock I would give for Tulsa that I still think we have a ways to go on is public transportation. It's definitely a car city. If you're living in a big city, maybe leveraging subways or anything else, or maybe even just walking, Tulsa is definitely not that type of place. Definitely a car is required for most folks, unless you're really trying to stay centralized in downtown. And that is a shock for some people. But that's definitely something that I think we could get better in as a city. So switching gears just a bit, I would love to hear from you, Tyus. As you think about, yourself 2-3 years ago, a remote worker considering a remote work program like Tulsa Remote. There's now 70 of these across the country, by the way. So this is an idea that we started that's been replicated over and over, especially after the pandemic. So there's plenty of options. Actually, I'll go ahead and give a plug for makemymove.com. If this idea intrigues you and you want to kind of weigh Tulsa in comparison to some of the others that are out there, we welcome you to do that. We think we'll stick out and rise to the top, but we certainly welcome you to do that. Would love to know, Tyus, from your perspective, what would you, if you're sitting in the seat of somebody who's kind of hearing about this idea for the first time, what advice would you give somebody that is considering joining a program like Tulsa Remote?
Yeah, I mean, something that I do whenever I'm kind of making a life choice, career choice, whatever it may be, is I really write out like a pros and cons list. It's like, what are the positives if I move to Tulsa? What are the negatives? And, just kind of like lean on other people. Like at the end of the day, like this is like your decision. And ultimately, like it was mine to move from Kansas City to Tulsa. But that's not to say that I didn't ask my mom her thoughts, or my brother, or some of my buddies in Kansas City. I think weighing the options of like your loved ones is important, and you should definitely do that. But What it came down to for me is I think that, this is just a really good opportunity, and I just have such a growth mindset. I love to build relationships and just get out of my comfort zone. And so, one of the best ways to do that is to pick up and move to a different city and completely start over, right? Like when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. I had to, build relationships and build community. And so something that I would say for somebody that's maybe deciding to take the leap to Tulsa is obviously like weigh your options, do your research. I'm a great person to talk to. You guys can find me on LinkedIn or on any social media platforms. If you have any questions, I'm happy to chat offline, just kind of about my experience. But ultimately, I think it's just important for you to kind of literally write out like a pros and cons list, like what's good is going to happen if I move. What are the cons, and then kind of like weigh it out and go from there. That would be my advice. So.
That's great advice. And Caitlin, what tips do you have for remote workers on how to make the most of their remote work experience in terms of community or personal growth? Again, trying to make this applicable for whoever might be listening right now. As you're in that kind of isolated feeling, do you have any thoughts or advice for those that are remote workers looking for that personal growth or community?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've really come to realize in the last several years is that everybody's kind of right in there with you in terms of like those feelings of isolation or feeling like, you could use some professional advice or things like that. Like people are much more willing to extend a hand and help you out, especially if you have, something to offer in return in terms of community or professional development. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to people and, ask to try and make those connections, especially if you have, some shared community or common ground. People are largely more willing to, be helpful than than not.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder that a lot of us are in this together, and so oftentimes that feeling that we might be having of isolation or loneliness, even just speaking up and sharing that with somebody that also is a remote worker could go a long way. They might be feeling the same thing, and then boom, you've got something that you can actually improve together in that community of even just two people. I mean, community, in my opinion, is just more than one. You can start with one other person and then start to build on from there. Sounds like you all have found really meaningful ways to do that. And I appreciate you both being here on the call with us. I've said this to both of you, but just great representatives of the folks that we're trying to attract, ready to give, ready to contribute, and have plugged in really meaningful ways. So I'm proud that you all are Tulsa Remote members and grateful that you've given us your time today. Justine, it looks like we have a couple more questions that maybe came from the event platform. I don't know the best way to deliver those. Oh, here we go. How has being part of a community helped you stay motivated at work? That's a good one. Either of you, Tyus or Caitlin, you guys have any responses to that?
Yeah, I can kind of weigh in, and then Caitlin, if you want to share. I think for me, like I love my job. I actually just started a new job with a marketing agency, and it's been great. But life is so much more than just like what you're doing at work. Like I get a lot of happiness and fulfillment from hanging out outside of work. And so for me, like building community, like how important is it to, after you get off of work, like be able to, text somebody and be like, hey man, you want to go grab a beer, or you want to go on a run, or do something, right? Do something that's not just being at your apartment, focusing on work and Slack messages and emails. And so for me, just being a part of community has helped me be happy, right, outside of work. And then I can kind of bring that energy kind of back into work kind of on a daily basis. So that's kind of how it's helped me out.
Love that. Caitlin, I'm coming to you. There's actually a recent study after the pandemic that showed in the Wall Street Journal that 40% of us actually see work as less important now as it was before the pandemic. I think that's such a great reminder, and I think also a perspective shift that a lot of us have had over the last few years, that life doesn't have to be about work. Obviously, it matters for paying bills and living the life that you want. But I also think that finding that community is just going to lead you to be a happier person. And what are happier people? They're showing up as better employees. They're showing up as somebody that's more balanced, that's contributing, more of what you have in terms of your strengths. And that leads to less burnout, more retention, all the good things that you want from an employee. So if you want to show up in the workplace as your best, I certainly think it starts actually outside of the workplace. Caitlin, anything you would add there?
Yeah, I think you guys really hit the nail on the head. And also, like, I kind of wanted to chime in that, like, I think I hit on this a little bit earlier, being part of a community like Tulsa Remote, where we have so many different people from different walks of life that do so many different things. it's been helpful even to just see what are people doing for a career. What's something that I could strive for if I'm maybe not happy in my job and want to do something different or find a different avenue or a different path. Like what's even available? What are people doing? And I think that's been a super interesting piece of this that I hadn't considered.
Awesome. Rachita's got another question in there about the $10,000. So yeah, your $10,000 is paid upfront after you move to Tulsa and given, and you've actually done your orientation. So if you buy a home, you get all of the money upfront, and that's after you show us the deed. If you don't buy a home, it's actually given to you in monthly stipends that are a bit front loaded. So you get $3,000 plus your $500 in that first month. To help you offset those moving costs, but it's not a reimbursement. So we're not seeing receipts and paying you back. It's cash. So you're getting cash. You're taxed on that cash. You're getting a 1099 at the end of it. But all of that is just money that's given to you, whether it's monthly if you do choose to lease, or all upfront if you do choose to buy. So I hope that answers that question. Justine, I think you said you had one more. You want to throw it up on the screen for us? Do you think that finding the right place to live can affect your personal and career growth? That's a good one too. I certainly think this is tied to that last question just a bit in terms of quality of life and general happiness. But Caitlin, Tyus, have you seen any improvement in terms of just your general satisfaction or career growth or career, ability to do your job better in a different place that you're actually living? How have you seen that play a role in terms of just your ability to do your job?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've honestly became like the best version of myself since I've moved here. And I think the reason why is when I first moved here, it was the first time that I had essentially lived by myself. You know, growing up, I was always with my brother and my parents. At college, I was always with just some of my college buddies in an apartment or a house. And so when I first moved to Tulsa, like I said, it was challenging at first, but I felt like I could really kind of build better habits and really kind of become the best version of myself. And so, I think finding the right place to live definitely correlates to, personal and career growth. And like I said, I've grown tremendously since I've been in Tulsa, just from like a habits perspective, just on a daily basis. I feel like I'm kind of doing the right things, at least trying to. My nutrition could probably be a little bit better, but that's probably relatable for everybody. So,
well, you did just talk about all the barbecue you missed, so maybe that's helping you out a little bit, Tyus.
Yeah.
Caitlin, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys just really hit the nail on the head. It's a personal challenge, I think, to join a program like this where you are moving, where you don't know anybody, and I don't want to say reinvent yourself, because I think, people are pretty staid in who they are, but there is that opportunity to kind of figure out what fits for you, what doesn't, and you can kind of get rid of those pieces of yourself and your lifestyle maybe that aren't serving you, and add in the things that maybe will get you a little bit more close to your goals and result there.
Yeah, that's great advice. And even at a more tactical level, I mean, you think about big cities like New York or LA or Austin, it might require you to just even physically drive 45 to an hour to get to an office. I mean, that is very much dictated by the place that you live. I think the quality of life certainly plays a role in who you are personally. And I personally believe that who you are personally shows up in your career and your ability to grow and get better and, show up as your best self in the workplace. So whoever's asking this question, I think hands down, without a doubt, where you live dictates who you are in so many ways, and who you are dictates how you show up in life. So great question. I would definitely not understate the way in which you're surrounding yourself, your physical surroundings, and where you're choosing to live, and your quality of life and the decision that you have the ability to make there. So I appreciate the question. Any other questions that you want to put into the comment section, or Justine, if you have any others, feel free to throw them up. If not, we'll close us out for the day. We'll count to 10, my old teacher style here. Awesome. Well, Justine, if you want to throw that last slide up there and then take Caitlin and Tyus off the slide. We really appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so much. Just want to wrap up. If you are interested in learning more about Tulsa Remote, we'd love you to go to join.tulsaremote.com. There's going to be a lot of information there about the program. That's where you can learn more. And we do an amazing job of showcasing what's happening here in Tulsa on social media. If you want to add us here on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're on TikTok as well for those youngins that are out there watching. Rachita, I'd love for you to add me on LinkedIn as well. If anyone's out there watching on LinkedIn, I'm Justin Harlan. You can see my name here on the screen. Certainly welcome any messages there too. So definitely reach out, continue to learn about us. If this is the first seed that's been planted about Tulsa Remote and you are anxious to build community, we are a great place to do it. There's so many ways to do it. Don't let yourself live isolated and lonely as a remote worker. Find that community wherever you are. Tulsa Remote is certainly one of many ways that you can do that, but we invite you to join us here. So thank you so much for joining us today. We work remotely. We're appreciative of the partnership, and we'll see everybody soon.